Cheng Dale recognized the item Wanner had shown him, stating that it was the founding Emperor Lai Manzi's long spear. As he finished examining the weapon, Cheng Dale realized that the relic wasn't the key he had been searching for. He pondered the past story of the legend Lai Manzi, with only his spear ending 19 years of war and creating the Great Dao Empire, but came to the conclusion that the key didn't lie with the weapon. Satisfied with his brief inspection, Cheng Dale handed the weapon back to Wanner, who was puzzled by his lack of interest, asking Cheng Dale if he didn't want to look at it further. She commented on his weird behavior, mentioning that all effort was just to take a single look to see her ancestors' prized weapon. He chuckled and explained that he admired ancient heroes and felt a sense of fulfillment in his heart upon seeing their legendary treasures. Suddenly, Cheng Dale changed the topic by inquiring about the reason why she was looking for him, reminding her that they were in agreement in which he would run errands for her in exchange for taking a look at her family's treasures. Initially, Wanner couldn't utter a word because she hesitated in her request and her face turned red. But then she burst out the reason, asking Cheng Dale to elope with her. She caught Cheng Dale off guard with her unexpected request, while Shenji pondered the surprising turn of events in his thoughts. Cheng Dale struggled to find the right words to respond to her unexpected proposal. Wanner continued, explaining that she didn't want to be married off by her father and that she wasn't ready for marriage yet, she explained while pouting. Cheng Dale responded to Wanner's concerns, suggesting that it was common for someone of her age to be married. He asked about the prospective groom her father had in mind for her. Wanner revealed that her father planned to marry her to the top placer of the martial arts examination. Cheng Dale thought this was a good thing, noting that in ancient times, beauty was often found alongside great heroes, while he gave a thumbs up and smiled widely. He expressed confidence that as the top placer among thousands, the person in question would become a great hero. But Wanner was upset, shouting at Cheng Dale as she hit the table, causing the cup to tip over and spill the water. She irritably emphasized the complexity of the martial examination this time and asked him if he understood so-called inner court politics, to which Cheng Dale asked Wanner to teach him about it. In response, Wanner pouted, as if she found it hard to believe him. However, Wanner still explained that the upcoming examination would not only assess martial arts but also troop formations, war strategy, and commanding ability. She mentioned that there were 3,600 spots allocated for representatives from cities across the empire, and each city would select talents to represent them in the examination this time. Cheng Dale expressed his amazement at the size of the empire, noting that among the 3,600 chosen people, there were definitely plenty of experts. Wanner straightened up in her seat as she responded that there wouldn't be many experts, but rather a lot of nobles. She then asked Cheng Dale if he knew how the representatives for the examination were chosen. Cheng Dale speculated that the representatives would likely excel in both pen and sword, with local competitions choosing those who excelled the most, who were then sent to the examination. However, Wanner made it sound as if she wasn't satisfied with his explanation. Cheng Dale questioned Wanner, asking if she was implying that it was not like what he had described. Wanner explained that the imperial court was paying a lot of attention to the examination this time. She mentioned that even if the participants didn't win in the end, a good performance could still be viewed highly by the court. She continued to describe how the chances to participate in the examination were distributed. Some spots were quietly given to influential families, while others were auctioned off to the highest bidder. Shenji interjected, questioning whether this would turn the martial examination into a feast for the nobles. Cheng Dale considered the implications of this new information. He realized that this examination could be more complicated than Wanner had initially thought. As he thought about the past, the imperial court only held academic exams and never martial ones, and it was an opportunity for people from Jianghu to showcase their skills and potentially rise in ranks. He considered the possibility that people from Jianghu might try to rob an official token from those coming to take the exam and use it to enter the test. Cheng Dale contemplated that in this era without pictures, he could claim the name on the token as his own, and no one would be able to confirm if his name was truly Zhang Mazai or not. He mused on the idea that among the individuals who had already entered the exam, there might be a considerable number of bandits and murderers. Cheng Dale found the situation increasingly interesting. He let out a smirk, Cheng Dalei chuckled despite the seriousness of the matter, which didn't sit well with Wanner. She questioned his laughter, clearly annoyed by his reaction. Cheng Dalei brushed off his laughter by coughing and urged Wanner to continue with her explanation. Wanner emphasized that with the current level of conflict among the people, the competition for the top position was intense. Whoever secured it would command the border defense forces and receive land and authority from the court. She pointed out that the nobles, whether from scholarly or martial families, were fiercely competitive and all wanted the winner to be someone from their families. Wanner mentioned that the host of the examination was also from a noble family. Cheng Dalei noted the conflict of interest where the organizers of the examination were acting both as referees and competitors in the competition. Wanner expressed her concern about how the examination would assess military strategies, as they couldn't engage in actual war with each other, but merely write it down on paper. She continued, stating that whoever they claimed to be unqualified was unqualified. Cheng Dalei expressed his understanding that the judges were already corrupt. He questioned whether her father was aware of the corruption surrounding the examination, and whether he was willing to let this mess continue. Wanner revealed that her father was aware of the situation and intended to marry her off to the top placer in order to establish a connection between the royal family. With a shallow expression, Cheng Dalei commented on the emperor's ruthlessness. Wanner expressed her reluctance to become a political tool and her desire not to be married to anyone, emphasizing that even if she were to marry someone, she passionately aspired to marry a great hero who led millions of elite soldiers under his command, much like the legendary war god Yang Longting, who repelled 100,000 ring tribesmen, her admiration evident in her expression. Wanner, with admiration and delighted eyes, mentioned the empire's god of war, Yang Longting, who was renowned for annihilating 100,000 enemies. However, Cheng Dalei and Shenji couldn't help but hold back their laughter upon hearing her statement. Puzzled by their reactions, Wanner inquired about their amusement. Cheng Dalei couldn't help but burst into laughter, playfully suggesting that Wanner read more books to enhance her aesthetics. Shenji cleared his throat as he stopped laughing. Wanner then continued her statement, expressing her expectation for Cheng Dalei to help her now that he was considered one of her people. However, Cheng Dalei hesitated, explaining that he couldn't leave Chang'an just yet as he had something to do. Wanner, somewhat disappointed, responded by saying she already suspected Cheng Dalei was waiting for the imperial examination results. She decided to make arrangements on her own and asked him to help her with something. Cheng Dalei, displaying his determination, offered to ruin the martial arts examination if that was what Wanner needed. He was ready to gather his people and create chaos in Chang'an in 10 days to prevent the examination from succeeding. Unimpressed, Wanner told him to stop being so violent, that he was really a mountain bandit. Cheng Dalei sought clarification from Wanner and requested that she specify what she needed him to do as he expressed his confusion. Wanner proposed a plan to Cheng Dalei, explaining that it would allow him to participate in the martial arts examination and eliminate the things she found ugly and repulsive. However, Cheng Dalei, expressed doubt, stating that he was just a mountain bandit and had no desire to win the martial arts examination to become a border guard for the empire. Wanner clarified her intentions, noting that she didn't want him to take the imperial examinations. Instead, she wanted him to be an examiner. Cheng Dalei appeared hesitant and questioned how she was able to put him in the examination room. Wanner reassured him, revealing that she had already checked it. She explained that there were 100 examiners this time, representing various factions, but one individual didn't belong to any faction. Wanner continued, mentioning that no one in Chang'an had ever seen the person. She then revealed her plan, wanting Cheng Dalei to disguise himself as that person and blend in. Prompting Cheng Dalei to inquire about the identity of the person, Wanner disclosed that it was Northwest Yun Xiaoguan Guard General Niu Sanjin. After their conversation 10 miles away from the official road to Chang'an, a couple was on their journey toward Chang'an, but the wife was growing impatient, asking her husband about their proximity to Chang'an and the urgency of their child's hunger. She implored him, urging him to pick up the pace. Anxiously, the wife raised the issue of their lengthy journey and questioned her husband whether they were heading the wrong way once more. The husband defended himself, explaining that he never was to Chang'an before and blamed Kan Chai for providing incorrect directions. Exasperated, the wife sighed and lamented her misfortune, expressing regret for following him. The husband attempted to reassure her, mentioning that their situation would improve once they arrived in Chang'an, where he was transferred by the imperial court. It revealed that the husband was Yun Shui Guan Guard General Niu Sanjin. However, their journey was interrupted by Cheng Dalei and his group, who ambushed them on the road and demanded toll fees or threatened to harm them. Cheng Dalei asserted his ownership of the mountain road and demanded all of their belongings as a toll fee for passage. He further issued a menacing threat, hinting at potential harm if his demands weren't met. 4 of them were covered in masks. Sanjin's wife, taken aback by the sudden encounter with these apparent bandits, expressed her regret, implying that marrying Sanjin might have been a mistake. She even stood up from her seat in agitation. Although displaying a touch of fear in his expression, Sanjin attempted to reassure his wife, assuring her that he was there. Sanjin, with a resounding battle cry, unleashed his swords in a burst of anger. He boldly confronted Cheng Dalei's group, accusing them of being bandits who dared to rob an imperial military officer. He pointed his swords at Cheng Dalei's group, his fury evident. Cheng Dalei inquired if he indeed was New Sanjin. New Sanjin confirmed his identity as the guard general of Yun Shui Guan. Shenji chimed in with historical context, mentioning that hundreds of years ago, the ancestor Sanjin had gifted a horse to their great ancestors, which led to him being assigned to Yun Shui Guan. The duty had passed down through generations, and now it was in the hands of the 5th generation New Sanjin. Shenji continued, explaining that in the previous year, during a large-scale invasion by the Ring tribe, Yun Shui Guan hadn't lost a single soldier in the conflict, which had earned them recognition from the imperial court. Cheng Dalei made a humorous remark about Yun Shui Guan's poverty and limited number of soldiers. Shenji then mentioned that Emperor Ming appreciated the new family's dedication to guarding Yun Shui Guan for generations without asking for resources for many years, which was recognized as the backbone of the empire. Sanjin, after revealing his identity, displayed a confident demeanor and expressed his satisfaction after Cheng Dalei learned his name, suggesting that he should back off. Shenji added more context, explaining that the imperial court designated Sanjin as an examiner for the martial arts examination, emphasizing that Sanjin did not belong to any faction. Cheng Dalei called upon Kinman, who promptly acknowledged the order and proceeded to engage in an attack, attempting to tie New Sanjin and his wife. In response, New Sanjin bravely faced the confrontational attack, challenging Kinman and mentioning his technique, the whirlwind chopping autumn wind sword. As the battle raged on, New Sanjin emitted cries of pain, vocalizing his struggle to break free. Despite Sanjin's bruised face, Linger noted his square face, purple coloration, wide mouth, and long beard. She questioned his appearance, wondering if he truly matched the description, and questioned whether he was a bandit. Kinman, with a satisfied smile, announced that he finished tying them up. He even placed his foot on Sanjin's back to assert control. His wife expressed regret for marrying him, and their son called out to his father. Sanjin, despite his injuries, emphatically questioned the audacity of anyone trying to impersonate him, asking what they wanted from him and pleading for the release of his wife and son. Cheng Dalei instructed Kinman to take New Sanjin and his family to Hulu Mountain and hide them there as he was done wearing Sanjin's armories. He also instructed Kinman to return to the underground city and let Su Ying manage its affairs. Shenji and Linger pretended to be his old slave maids. With their plan in motion, they continued their journey, now approaching the city of Chang'an. At Chang'an Palace, Cheng Dalei was stopped by the eunuch. He held a portrait, inquiring if the representative Cheng Dalei was the real Sanjin. Cheng Dalei, who was disguised as Sanjin, affirmed that the portrait represented him. However, the eunuch remained skeptical, suggesting he looked nothing like the portrait, and questioned if Cheng Dalei was pretending to be someone else. Cheng Dalei calmly explained that he had been fat at the time. The eunuch continued to assert that the portrait did not resemble Cheng Dalei. Cheng Dalei, instead of insisting further, surprisingly agreed with the eunuch's assessment, acknowledging that the person in the portrait was indeed not him. The eunuch, somewhat puzzled, asked if Cheng Dalei was admitting to being an imposter. Cheng Dalei defended himself, proposing that the eunuch check the age of the portrait, revealing that it was his grandfather's likeness. He expressed disbelief that anyone would impersonate his grandfather, known as New. Shenji then intervened, clarifying that Sanjin had long since passed away, and Cheng Dalei was his 5th-generation grandson. The eunuch, grasping the situation, acknowledged the changes that had occurred and mentioned the emperor's passing. He empathized and requested Cheng Dalei's official seal for registration, which Shenji promptly handed over. As they proceeded inside, they attracted the attention of the people in the area, who were curious about the newcomers. A person from the civilian faction pointed to Cheng Dalei and remarked that he was a complete stranger to them. Another member of the faction wondered when someone so poor had joined the ranks of the military officials. Someone in a mocking tone commented on the antiquity of Cheng Dalei's armor, suggesting it might be older than his grandfather. Another civilian faction member chimed in, stating that Cheng Dalei was from a remote place that didn't even know half the rule. Some in the civilian faction found it surprising that, despite his apparent poverty, the general had servants, which made Cheng Dalei's face irritable. Internally, Cheng Dalei pondered the historical tension between military and civilian officials, wondering if these civilians assumed he was a newcomer. He then addressed the crowd directly, questioning their amusement. In response to the comments, Cheng Dalei defended himself, stating that while his armor was worn, it had been passed down through generations in his new family. The civilian faction continued to mock Cheng Dalei's appearance, questioning his origin and criticizing him for taking an exam without appearing well-groomed. Another member of the civilian faction made a reference to the importance of the temple and the reverence shown to the Son of God. Amidst the mockery from civilian factions, a member of the military faction also expressed their disapproval of the general's unkempt clothing, seeing it as a sign of disrespect to His Majesty. Cheng Dalei acknowledged the state of his old and worn armor, admitting that it no longer shone like the official uniforms. He explained that he couldn't afford new armor but would wear it in battle if the rings attacked, following the tradition of his new family's ancestors. Members of the civilian faction commented on the importance of the examiners as representatives of the martial arts examination. They raised concerns about the general's appearance, suggesting that if everyone looked as unkempt as he did, it would invite ridicule from the world. Cheng Dalei defended his choice to wear his worn armor, asking if there was any shame in it. He questioned whether the battles fought against the rings, the loyalty he displayed, or the glory of serving the emperor's soldiers were ridiculous. A member of the civilian faction was left speechless by his response, while another person in the group acknowledged Cheng Dalei's eloquence talents. Cheng Dalei, somewhat surprised by the comment, asked about this mention of eloquence. Cheng Dalei passionately emphasized that imperial soldiers didn't defend the borders with arguments but rather relied on their worn armor, sturdy bodies, and unwavering determination. He criticized those in the group who merely engaged in empty talk, accusing them of deluding themselves when discussing generals in worn armor fighting against the rings. He continued passionately, questioning their intentions, wondering if they aimed to demoralize the dedicated soldiers who served their country. He warned against allowing the Ring tribe to seize their beautiful land. In the wake of Cheng Dalei's impassioned statements, the entire civilian faction fell into absolute silence, stunned by his words. Meanwhile, one member of the military faction engaged in whispered discussions, suggesting that Cheng Dalei had a talent and recommending him to headquarters, while the other, extending a friendly gesture to Cheng Dalei, offered him a pair of armor, hoping he could accept it as a token of friendship. Cheng Dalei clenched his fist as he acknowledged in his thoughts the utility of his eloquent skills. As the gathering continued, the host addressed the participants who had come from afar. The host went on to explain that before they took charge of the examinations, Emperor Ming would first conduct a written test on them. This would determine their level and position in the group of examiners. Continuing, the host clarified that the three with the best scores would serve as principal investigators. Together with His Majesty Emperor Ming, the last military leaders were selected, and that made both the civilian and military factions form shock on their faces. Inwardly, Cheng Dalei admitted that written exams weren't his strong suit. Cheng Dalei considered that he was running out of time to practice his brush writing skills, recognizing the importance of paper notes in the current era. He thought that the topic of military management struck him as quite broad. He observed the civilian officials who had recently faced a defeat and noted their eagerness for a fight, as they seemed determined to teach the military a lesson in this test. As he looked at the old military men, many of whom struggled with writing, he sensed their discomfort and embarrassment. Acknowledging his own role as a military officer, he couldn't help but feel that he was already putting on a show, and it might not have been right for him to make a spectacle of himself again. He pondered whether he should have simply submitted a blank answer sheet and gotten by with it. As he contemplated the situation, he began to doze off. However, his nap was interrupted when Wanner approached Cheng Dalei's table and kicked him to wake him up. She disguised herself as eunuch. Cheng Dalei, displaying irritation, looked up at her with tired eyes, while Wanner stared at him in anger. In a hushed voice, Cheng Dalei asked her if there was a standard answer for the test. Wanner, on the other hand, stared intently at him. In response, Wanner snubbed him, and Cheng Dalei stared at her in response. Cheng Dalei thought to himself, realizing that Wanner wasn't there to help him cheat but to monitor whether he had the strength to work. Reflecting on the topic of military management, He considered it both simple and complex, understanding why these words were written by His Majesty Emperor Ming. He thought about the various aspects, from training a small team to controlling an army of 100,000. He also considered the spiritual construction of imperial soldiers, drawing from his own experience in leading thousands of men and handling troop deployment, logistical support, and medical care for the sick and wounded. He pondered how to effectively translate his knowledge onto paper. Finally, Cheng Dalei decided to write the statement as a brief discussion of the spirit of the bright sword. Within the capital of Chang'an, individuals who took the exam discussed their experiences. One person said that the exam was quite challenging, making it difficult to know where to start with the answers. Another individual agreed, mentioning the abundance of choices that made the questions particularly challenging to tackle. Wanner, with a smile, asked Cheng Dalei about his answer to the exam. Cheng Dalei responded confidently, stating that his answer was pretty good and simple, not difficult at all. Wanner questioned him further, asking what kind of score he expected to receive. He even boasted that he expected to receive a full score, which Wanner appeared taken aback by Cheng Dalei's confidence. Cheng Dalei continued to boast, claiming that if rankings were to be considered, he would easily secure the first position. Wanner, growing irritable, responded with a sigh and expressed skepticism about Cheng Dalei's chances of surpassing the competition, emphasizing the complexity of the situation. In her thoughts, Wanner acknowledged that she might need to assist Cheng Dalei herself. As night fell at the general's heavenly policy mansion, the general was filled with laughter and praised Niu Sanjin for speaking on behalf of the military officers. One of the military personnel recounted the situation to the general, describing the pale faces of the group of civilian officers when Cheng Dalei confidently declared that he would secure first place in the test. The general appeared concerned about the possibility of Cheng Dalei actually achieving the top position, as it might make the palace's academic people of the palace become laughingstock for them. The military person suggested that since Cheng Dalei had no name or affiliation, they should try to bring him to their side. The general recognized Cheng Dalei's talent and believed that inviting him to join the military faction would improve their chances of winning the martial arts examination. He also noted that he became rivals with an old man from the palace in this competition. Regarding the matter of imperial military power, the general emphasized the need to prevent interference from the palace and declared that the war scholar must ultimately be their man. One of the military personnel inquired if the general already had a candidate in mind, to which the general mentioned the name Liu Qingming. At the residence of Magistrate Kui the following day, discussions were taking place. Magistrate Kui expressed his skepticism about Cheng Dalei's ambition to claim the first position. He considered Cheng Dalei nothing more than a clown and instructed his people to examine Cheng Dalei's writing closely. Magistrate Kui emphasized the need for caution in the upcoming martial arts exam, as the old martial artist was not weak. He then presented their candidate's work and instructed that it be read and the list burned. The magistrate made it clear that their people were top positions on the list, and he specifically mentioned that Jiu Zhang was the top scholar this time, which the officer acknowledged his instructions and bowed. As evening fell at the residence of the martial arts examiners, there was a loud knock at the door. Cheng Dalei responded to the noise, called out that he was coming. As he opened the door gate, he addressed Wanner, expressing concern that they might get caught. However, Wanner responded with a mischievous smile, seemingly untroubled by the potential risks. As Linner served them tea, she observed Wanner blankly. Wanner started talking to Cheng Dalei, stated that she was there for an important matter and asked him if he remembered the mission she had given. Cheng Dalei affirmed that he always kept it in mind. He understood that the mission involved eliminating those Wanner disliked and supporting those she favored to rise to the top. He inquired if she had specific individuals in mind. Wanner confirmed this, stating that even though she didn't know who she liked yet, she was sure about who she didn't like. She explained that there were two people she wanted Cheng Dalei's help in getting rid of, prompting Cheng Dalei asked to which two. Without hesitation, Wanner mentioned the names of Liu Qingming and Jiu Zhang. Cheng Dalei assured Wanner that he would complete the task and showed a big smile while giving a thumbs up. Curious about her choice of targets, Cheng Dalei inquired why she had specifically chosen those two people. Wanner dismissed their abilities, describing one as a wimp and the other as a muscle freak, both lacking intelligence. She speculated that they might get disqualified on their own, which Cheng Dalei found to be the best outcome. Wanner then reminded Cheng Dalei about her request to help her find her sixth brother and asked if he had any news. Cheng Dalei explained his inability to gather information since he couldn't even leave Chang'an. He pessimistically suggested that her brother was already dead. Wanner dismissed his statement, chiding him for making ominous remarks. The next day, the martial arts competition was coming up, and the two major groups, represented by the general and the ministers, were in the ring. They were ready to wrestle and tear each other apart, and they did not know that it wasn't a face-to-face duel as they thought. Somehow, an insignificant person had also entered the ring. He raised his eyes and looked around with confidence. Meanwhile, in the royal study room at the Wyong Palace, an officer informed Emperor Ming that the examination papers for the written tests had been reviewed and were ready for his inspection. Emperor Ming hastily inquired about New Sanjin's writing, prompting the officer to explain that they had already excluded his paper due to its poor quality. The officer questioned why the emperor would want to read it. Emperor Ming revealed that he had heard about Wanner's claim that Cheng Dalei would secure first place, and wanted to see what he might have been hiding in his heart, as Cheng Dalei had boasted that much. He then instructed the officer to bring Cheng Dalei's writing, to which the officer acknowledged it.